Civil War is a film that really takes elements of sound, of visual, of emotion, and just really captivates the audience. It's a once in a lifetime experience. But how does Civil War and Civil War sound differ from any other film like it? What makes it so unique? Well, first off, basically, in the movie, civil wars erupted between the United States governments and a bunch of different factions. The president, who is serving a third term, claims that he's about to have victory, that he's going to win over everybody. While this is going on, renowned photographer Lee Smith saves aspiring journalist Jesse Cullen from a suicide bombing in Brooklyn. Lee and a colleague of hers, Joel, intend to travel to Washington, D.C. to interview and photograph the president before the city falls. Lee's mentor, Sammy, asked to accompany them as far as Charlottesville, where the Western Forces, or the WF, of Texas and California are assembling for this final offense. Despite Lee and her hesitance, she and Joel agree. Lee is not aware that Jesse convinces Joel. Despite Lee not really wanting to go yet, she's convinced. And then, also, Jessie, this young girl, she ends up convincing Joel to bring her along. Against Lee's wishes, of course. So after departing the city, the group goes to this rural gas station protected by armed men and buys gas with Canadian dollars at a really, really high, expensive inflation rate. Then Jessie wanders off to this, car wash. And as she goes over, she finds these two men are being tortured. And the men who are torturing them claim that these are looters. So one owner follows Jesse, but Lee diffuses the situation by taking a photo of the man posing with his victims. After they leave, Jesse is so upset that she was too scared to take the photos, and she confides in Lee. Well, following that, they go to an overnight stop near this ongoing fight. The group document the combat the next day as these militiamen assault a building held by loyalists. Lee sees Jesse's potential as a war photographer, while Jesse photographs the militia executing captured loyalist soldiers. Continuing, the group spends the night at a refugee camp before passing through a small town where, under watchful guard, residents attempt to live in this blissful ignorance. Lee and Jesse grow closer, trying on clothes at a local shop. Later, they get pinned down in a sniper battle amid the remains of a Christmas fair. The sniper mocks Joel's attempts to ascertain which party they are fighting for or against, telling Joel that they and the sniper in a nearby house are simply just trying to survive. Jesse asks if Lee would photograph Jesse being killed, and Lee responds with, "What do you think?" implying that she might. While driving, the four encounter these other two reporters known as Tony and Bahai. Tony and Jesse are playing and they switch vehicles, only for Bahai and Jesse to be captured by these other loyalists, who then start dumping civilian corpses in this mass grave. Now this is this crazy, horrific scene where the sound effect is so much more intense, but we'll gotta get into that later. So as the rest of the group come in and they try to save Jesse and Bahai, this guy ends up killing Bahai and then killing Tony once they admit that they're not from America. Sammy comes to the rescue, literally hitting them with the vehicle, and saves them by driving off to head towards this military camp in Charlottesville. But as he's on his way towards that, he ends up dying before they can make it. This, of course, leads to Joel having a cinematic performance that is for the ages. So after that, they meet with these two fellow reporters and inform the group that the government's top generals have pretty much all surrendered, and that the president is left unprotected, and that the WF are going to go inside and basically take the president by force. Jesse, Joel, and Lee then decide to follow the WF into DC as Jesse's photography becomes increasingly risky, but she's really improved now. Now she really gets it. Now she is at the level Lee used to be. While this is happening, Lee has a full-on PTSD breakdown, and she's unable to even start taking pictures. Once they get into the Capitol, this presidential limousine tries to escape, but gets completely mowed down. They find out that the president is not inside there, and so they move back into the White House, where they end up discovering the president. The WF squad that follows them and that basically holds them while they're taking pictures around them, fights off with what's remaining of the Secret Service in the press room. This eventually leads to a situation where Jesse comes out to take a picture, but because of her naivety, she ends up getting Lee killed. And Jesse ends up getting a photograph of Lee's final moments as Lee is trying to save Jesse. The Western soldiers capture the president in the Oval Office, and Joel tells them to wait so he can get a quote. The president literally begs for mercy, saying, "Don't let them kill me," and Joel replies, "Yep, that'll do." Jesse takes a photo of the president's execution, smiling as the Western soldiers pose with the corpse. This film is something that is extremely difficult to really wrap your head around as far as how brutal, how relatable is this. This film is something that is unfortunately something that a lot of people, I'm sure, can find a little bit of confrontation in themselves as to how relatable this is. With the world being the way that it is, with things having gone so bad, it is a story that I personally feel is so valid and so, like, honestly kind of a warning for all of us. I mean, this film, not only does it depict what we would do to each other, but this depicts what many people, which is shown with, situations like the invading of the Capitol building and many other situations. How far will Americans go when Americans stop believing in America? And this movie shows that. At the same time, this movie does something so unique to really bring in the terror, because if you sit in this theater and you watch this movie, when you hear the gunshot, there is no helping feeling a jolt of electricity through your entire body. And it's actually done on purpose by the filmmakers. They really wanted to find a way to make sure that the gunshots scared you every time that they went off. And I definitely feel like they did so. What does this do for filmmakers, and what does this really show when you are, making your films? Is that taking something so seriously and adding an element to really put in an emotion into an audience and into a viewer is so powerful for your story. If you can make that happen, when you have this film where every gunshot makes you want to cringe, it has no choice but to really burrow its point and its purpose into you. And that's what's so unique about Civil War. Not only is Civil War just an incredible and extremely deep and powerful and emotionally challenging story, but it's also a very close to your heart and jump in your back and scratch down your freaking brain scary film just by using the sound of a real rifle. Real rifles are scary. This story is scary. This story seems to be more of a warning than it is a fantasy. And that's what they tried to do, and that was the point that they made. Civil War is by far a film that you have to see. It is dire that you see it if you are a filmmaker, not even just for the point of enjoyment, but just as the point of studying how to really scare the shit out of your audience.